projects that I'm going to talk about is a project that I just recently completed in the Sudan Sahel in southeastern Senegal, where we evaluated impacts of climate change on water availability, not only for project operations at the mine, but also the effects on agricultural sustainability for the people who live in the region. So basically trying to integrate those types of studies into future plans for hazard mitigation planning. So the project is basically located down in southeastern Senegal. And the purpose of the study was to look at the cumulative impacts of climate change and project development on sustainable agriculture. One of the things is whenever you develop a project in any location, you're going to take away land that is being used by local populations. And in this instance, there is traditional agriculture that's being conducted in the area. And components of the project are actually going to build over their arable land. And so you're going to have reduced land for agriculture, and then combined with climate change, looking into the future, how is that going to affect the sustainability of the region? So one of the things, my background is actually in climatology, and one of the other team members on this project is a climatologist also. We look at the current climate of the region, and then you look at climate going back in time, and we actually went back 160,000 years, and looked at natural forcing mechanisms that drive climate in the area. Unfortunately, there's not time to go into all of the science or technical aspects of this project right now, but if anybody wants to contact me in the future, that'd be great. And I can go over some of the things that we actually found and did in more detail. So after identifying what climate was like in the past, is to identify the correlation with past climate with forcing mechanisms, whether it be orbital parameters, the Earth's orbits around the sun, or sunspot cycles, and then take those types of mathematical aspects in physics and project that into the future. So right now, this is our project area. It's located in the dry subhuman zone of the Sahel. And it's well within the intertropical convergence zone of Africa. So it has a very distinctive wet season from June to September, and a very hot, dry season from January to March. And one of the ways of looking at how this climate is affected through time is looking at Earth's orbital parameters, and that basically drives glacial and interglacial cycles. And then sunspot cycles, a lot of people think about the 11-year sunspot cycle that's basically advertised best in the news, but there's actually other types of cycles, such as those that affected the medieval warm period that lasted about 200 years, and the Little Ice Age. So you have different frequencies of sunspot cycles that have different effects on climate over different periods of time. And so correlating that to atmospheric pressure systems to see how those change over time in the region and thus affect climate in the area. We did not look at the effect of anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions because the science is too new to do that in this region. And basically our studies determined that Earth's orbital parameters are not going to change significantly for the life of the mine, which is only 20 years. And so we didn't really consider that moving forward. We mainly focused on sunspot cycles. And this is just an example. There was a big accident over there just a second ago. This is an example of the El Nino Southern Oscillation, and how during the El Nino phases you have some regions that are warm and dry, and then during the La Nina phases you have areas that are cool and wet. Now these phases can go for 20 to 30 years where you'll have higher frequencies of La Ninas or higher frequencies of El Ninos. So one of the things that we did is we looked at not only ENSO but other atmospheric mechanisms, and we went back in time and looked at when they occurred relative to climate in the region, and we found that correlation between La Nina cycles and El Nino cycles, and in the Sahel area it affects that region with La Nina, makes it cooler and wetter, El Nino makes it drier and more prone to drought. And as you can see here, this was a period when there was El Ninos occurring. So all of the things that we looked at were Pacific patterns of circulation, North Atlantic oscillation, Arctic oscillations, and all of them basically indicate that over the next 20 to 30 years there's going to be more precipitation in the area, which means there'll be ample water available not only for operating the mine, but also for the agricultural sustainability in the area, providing that it's managed correctly. So the reconstruction basically indicated that there will be enough water to help support the societies living in the area. These are pastoralists, agro-pastoralists, and one of the things that our study did is we looked at their sustainable traditional agricultural practices, and we found that they have very good ways of managing the soils themselves. And so one of the key factors is consulting with them continually during this process to make sure that they can identify when the agricultural fields are starting to deteriorate and when they need to be rotated. After this period of relative high precipitation, it's going to move into a period of aridity. And that's one of the things that we wanted to talk with the mining managers and the government about, was how do you manage the landscape after the mine is closed down? You've already basically changed the landscape, and so you need to take it into consideration. What is the area going to be like? And it appears that there will be increased drought in the area and aridity after the mine closes. This is the actual project area, and this basically shows where the reservoir is going to be going. And it's, as you can see, these are agricultural fields, and so the reservoir that's going in to actually support the mining infrastructure is going to take out a lot of the agricultural fields. One of the things our historical studies basically determine is that people tend to flee to this area when there's droughts. They come down from the Sahara, and it's a place of refuge. So you're going to have, in future droughts, potentially more people coming into this area as well. So you're going to have increased immigration, as well as increased population there to work the mines, and less land available to actually support them. So basically what we did is go through a variety of things, not only looking at agricultural sustainability and climate change, but we talked to the local community members to see how they wanted to help manage this. And that's one of the key things, is calling on traditional knowledge when you're working with local communities and not going in and trying to impose things on them. So our soil scientists basically determined that they have how to manage their lands down pat. I mean, they've been working in this area, running agricultural fields for generations, and so it's to consult with them to see when there's stress. The government has agreed to manage the reservoir post-closure, and they're going to practice aquaculture there to increase protein availability. And the reservoir will also be used for localized irrigation agriculture. And it's very important to consult with the locals on this and keep communication going, because in some instances it can lead to conflict because it changes the social dynamics in the area. When you provide some people with water and others don't have it, they can change the power structure. So it's always important to take consultation very, very seriously and work closely with them, not only during the life of the mine, but after the life of the mine as well. The locals have agreed to dredge the reservoir so that it doesn't infill too quickly, and use the actual sludge mixed with compost on new agricultural fields that are going to be developed for them in areas that have not been formerly ever, farmed for anything. The mining company has decided to develop a nursery and train locals to grow new kinds of crops in the area that they can use not only for sustaining themselves, but also to develop somewhat of a market economy. And again, one of the things that we told them is that they really need to keep a balance in who gets social and political and economic strength. This is basically the team of people that we worked with. We had an integrated team working with local scholars from Senegal, climatologist Mark Vendrick from Vancouver, Canada. Jeff Altschul is an archaeologist and anthropologist. We did a lot of ethnographic interviews. And basically we found that integrating the science, the hard science, with anthropological science is a good way of coming up with management plans for the future. And one of the things that we think would be very important is taking this kind of information for the country or the region and rolling it into basically a risk preparedness plan. We now know that it's going to have ample rain for a period of time, but in the future it's going to have drought. So taking that into consideration, preparing for long-term risk preparedness rather than responding to disasters or drought when you already have people who are fleeing from the situation. So, and with that, I'd like to go to the final slide. And this is just to acknowledge Oregon Joint Venture Group for showing corporate social responsibility.
Thank you.